Your boss wants to disable weekends. No Saturday or Sunday should be selectable. With slot, you could create a custom day renderer that makes weekends look disabled, but they would still be clickable. Slot changes how the things look, not how they behave. What you need is to change the data before it renders. How you set is disable equals to true for all weekend days. Today we add hook. It intercepts the render pipeline and updates the data. And let me make it again crystal clear. Slot changes the presentation. How does a day look like? What is the HTML? But hooks changes the data that goes into presentation, and the hooks runs before slots. They transform the data, and then the transformed data will be received by slots. If you want disable weekend, the hook will set is disabled to true, and the slot will receive is disabled true and renders with disable styling. This is a clear separation. So now we implement our hook systems. Now let's create our hooks in our calendar view. So we'll open the hooks folder. Inside it, all these files are from our previous module. Now let's go to the calendar view. Now we can add our hooks code, and we'll see it action when we in. Now let's add our hooks. So inside our hooks folder, all these files are from our previous module. Now let's open the calendar view, and we will add our hooks code here. So in this, after the slots, let's add our hooks object. So we'll say first we write the code, and then when we test it, we will understand how this is working. So let's add it here. This dot hooks before render after render. We need 4 hooks. Before render, the complete date picker, after date picker is rendered, and 2 more for the particular day render. So we'll say before day render, the last is after day render. Now let's come in here. We'll check if we have options dot hooks. So if user has passed some hooks, then we will integrate it here. But before that, we need functions for adding the hook. So let's create our first hook method. We'll create it here. It's add hook. It take hook name and callback. So first we check if this dot hooks of hook name does not exist, then we'll add the log. So we'll say console dot warn, say unknown hook, the name of the hook, say hook name, and we will return it from empty method. Next, if we find it, so we'll say this dot hooks of hook name, then we will push it the callback. And here is the important part. Here we will return a method that we can use to remove the hook. So I'll say return index equals to this dot hooks of hook name index of callback. we'll check if we have the index is greater than -1, then we want to remove it. We'll say this dot hooks of hook name, and we'll say splice index and 1. This will remove the hook from the hook list. The hooks array, it will just remove that. So this is our add hook. We need one more method, which is run hook. So once we add the hook, we need a method that can run the hook, like call the method for that particular hook. So we'll need run hook, the hooks. So we'll say hook name and data. First we check if there is no hook inside our hooks object. Then we just return data. And if you find it, let's have a variable here, result data, and we'll say for const hook of this dot hooks of hook name. We'll put it inside our try catch block. Let's say first hook result equals to hook, and here is the result, which is the data it takes. So we'll give it result, and here we will check if hook result is not equals to undefined. We'll say result equals to hook result. Else we will go inside the catch block and we'll say console dot error. We'll log the error in at the hook name hook, and then we can add error here. So we'll say here is the error, and then finally we'll return the result. Now this will make more sense when we integrate and test it in our actual DatePicker. Now let's see where we need to add the hook. So let's go to the render method. So in the render, we are rendering the data for the day and for the calendar. So first we will need, before the context, we'll add it here. We'll say render context equals to this dot run hooks, and we want to render beforeRender hook, and we'll say render context. Now why we are writing this like here? So this is before we render the DatePicker. Like anything before we render, we need to modify this data. So we have the data here and we call this run hook. It will call the function and it will run that particular callback, and then it will give the data, it will modify data, and it will update this current render state, and then the rest of the calendar can start working. So this is before we render, we have ability to modify the data. If it's not making any sense, please wait. Once we test in our DatePicker, you will see it how it works. So this is our before render, and then we need beforeDayRender. So we'll say render context dot days equals to render context dot days dot map day. Now this is before we render the day. We have ability to modify the day data. So we'll say return this dot run hooks, and we want to run before day render, and here is the data. Okay, this should be the, we need to change this one, so because we cannot reassign to a constant, so now we can. And next, let's see what we have inside our render. Here we have the HTML, we update the HTML, update the reference. Here we display the DatePicker. Now here the DatePicker is render. We can add our next hook after render. So we'll say this dot run hooks. We'll say after render. So once DatePicker is rendered. Now we have access to the DOM and we can modify it there. So we'll say context. We need to add some data. So we'll say render context and elements. What are all those elements that we have access to? We can say elements. These are the elements we have access to, and this is the context we have. So this is the data that is rendered, and these are the elements where data is rendered. So we can easily modify it. Next, see what we have inside our render days. So this renders the days. So in here we can say before you render the day, we have options to modify the data. So we'll say days. So we need to change this one to let. We'll say days equals to days dot map day. We'll say this dot run hook, and we'll say before day render. We can have the day data. Next we have here, so the inner HTML is updated, the title is updated, this is updated. Now before we emit the event, we can add it here, this dot run hook. This is after day is rendered. So we'll say after day render, we can add it here, days and elements equals to this dot elements. Okay, so this is our after day render. Now let's see. So now we are done with our hook. Now we can actually test it. So let's open the index.html. In here I have written a very simple HTML. So we have the DatePicker first, and this is nothing but the log, and here is our DatePicker 1 and DatePicker 2. So DatePicker 1, we say before render we are doing no change, we just logging the data here. And in the second DatePicker, what we are doing, we are saying that here is the hook before day render, and we are checking here if the day is weekend, we are disabling it. So let's see it in action. So this is our page. If I click here, okay, it's not working. Let's see what is missing. It says cannot read property of undefined reading days, calendar view 95. Okay, let's see calendar view 95. Okay, render days. So in here we are modifying the data and we are adding it here, but let's see what is our run hook do. In here we calculate the data, but we never return it. So if we just return it from here, that error should go away. Error is gone. Now let's check. Okay, we still don't have the days disabled. We have given that days should be disabled. It is not there. We are passing the hook, but it's not working. Let's see our hook. Okay, let's see. Okay, here is the problem. We did not added the hooks that were passed by the user. So let's add it here now. Object dot entries and then options dot hooks for each hook name and callbacks. Let's add const callback array, because we will get all the callbacks for a particular hook. Array dot is array callbacks. First we check if we have all the hooks inside the array or not. If it is, then let's say callbacks, else we'll put it inside the array. Then we'll say callback array dot for each callback we'll add this dot add hook, and we'll give it hook name and callback. Okay, now let's see. Yeah, now our weekends are disabled. So what we did, we come in here, we pass this hook. So we'll say before day render, if it is weekend, we disable it. If we just say false, see, they are enabled. If we say true, disabled, yeah, disable them. So our hook is working fine. Now let's see how hook is working. We can see it's working, but let's understand how it is working. So we pass hooks in our options, and in here we are adding the hooks inside the particular hook. If it is before render, after render, before day render, or after day render, we are pushing that function inside that. And then we have this add hook method and run hook. So add hook is just add the hook to the array. Each array will have its own hook. So this is where we use the add hook method. And run hook, what it does, it run the hook. So if we check our run hook, so what it does, it says before render, this is the context, and then we want to run it. So it gets the data, and whatever function is, that function will get the data and update it. And then this is before the DatePicker runs, and this is before the day runs. This is where this disable weekend is happening. So it says before this, here is the data. Now before day render, what we are giving here is this method. We say this is the method, use it. And in here we have this hook integrated. This will help us to achieve the functionality. But if we just remove it, see, if we remove it, then we check, see, this is not working because we don't have ability to edit the data. But if we just add it here, and inside our use case, we say, I want to disable it, we can simply disable it. So this is the hook. It's very simple. We have the one method run hook, and we just integrated like before calendar runs, before day render, after day render, after DatePicker rendered. All those 4 scenarios we have covered. Now our hook system is completed. They are working fine. We have before render, after render, before day render, after day render. All these 4 hooks, they are working fine. In next episode, we are going to add plugin functionality in our DatePicker. I see you in next episode.